Hi, today we're going to have a go at photographing hovering kestrels. I came past this field yesterday afternoon and saw they'd cut the grass. Now they don't cut the grass here very often. It's not farmed anymore. This is not part of the farming practice. They're not bringing in silage or anything. When it was farmed, it used to get ploughed and harrowed, and it was a fantastic place to photograph things like brown hares and partridges and roe deer, because you've got this lovely smooth soil and there's a nice ridge in the middle of the field too. If you get them standing on top of that ridge, very, very photogenic. But that doesn't happen anymore. So it's just been long grass for a long time, but they've decided to cut it. And when I first saw it, I sort of cringed, because this is the epicenter for brown hares on this estate. There's more brown hares in these two large fields than anywhere else. And it's early August, so there'll still be young leverets about. When the tractor comes along with the cutters on the back, the adult hares will typically run out the way. In fact, I do know photographers have talked about when they're harvesting, they can stand on the edge of the field and they get good opportunities to photograph things coming out of the crop as the harvest is coming along. So the adult hares might escape, but the young leverets, their survival is based on keeping still. So quite likely they kill some leverets doing this, and the skylarks are still nesting as well, or they were. At the same time, I say to myself, it's a good opportunity for other species. When one species suffers, another gains. So I stood and watched from the corner over there for just 5 minutes, and there was 4 kestrels hovering at the same time, because this field is now full of stranded insects, crickets and mayflies and the like, and the kestrels are having a real feast. It's probably a family of kestrels. They did nest a couple of fields in that direction, so it's probably the adults and the youngsters. But it's a good opportunity for me to get flight shots of hovering kestrels. All of my YouTube films are about 10 minutes in length, but I'm working on a longer film, and one of the shots I need for that is kestrels hovering. And I've been going to various places trying to get it in this last few months and failed. So this is my best chance. The best place I've ever been for hovering kestrels was Aberdeen. There's a cliff there, and I can't remember exactly where it is, but it's close to the centre of Aberdeen, and close to the harbour. You're sort of overlooking the harbour. And there's a very wide road, and you can easily park on that road and then drive up and down it and photograph out the car window. This kestrel hovers over the cliff. It's a very steep grassy slope going down to the sea, and he hovers there, and because you're on top of the cliff, you're dead level with that kestrel. A friend of mine used to live in Aberdeen. He was always photographing it, so he told me about it, and I went and did it a couple of times, but that was in the days of film, so a long time ago. But this is the best chance I've had recently, so I'm just going to put a hide up here, just sit in and hope. There's no way of predicting where they're going to be. It's just sitting and waiting and hoping it brightens up a bit, because it's far too dull at the moment for flight photography. So I'm going to be using the Buteo single person hide, but I'm not going to put it up in the normal direction. So the door would normally go at the back. Here's the door. I'm shooting out of the side today, because you've got a much larger panel on the side here, and I'm not going to be very close to these kestrels. I don't have to worry about the birds seeing me, and I'm going to be sitting back there, but I want a good wide panel. If I'm doing flight photography, I've got to be able to swing that lens around, and the normal exit hole for your lens is much smaller. But if you shoot out the sides, you've just got a bigger aperture to film out of. I've put a couple of tent pegs in it because it's a little bit breezy today, and this acts as a big sail. If the wind catches it, it takes off. But normally you don't have to bother with tent pegs, it's just freestanding. It's become my go-to hide now. My British hide, which I used to use all the time with 4 poles in the corners, I don't even put it in the car anymore. It's just in storage at home. Still got its uses for when you're working on a steep slope, because this is not so good when you're on a slope, but it's really become the main hide I use. I'll just show you my latest bit of camera kit over here. Now this is only really appropriate for video photography. If you're doing stills photography, you don't need this sort of rig. But for video, vibration is a major issue, and your film looks very amateurish if you can see this vibration. The editing software I use, Power Director, removes vibration, and it's very effective, and I assume other editing software does the same as well. But nevertheless, you want to get it right in the first place if you can. So this is made by Small Rig, and it comes in 3 parts. You get the bars, you get the bit at the front here with the bracket going under the lens, and a bit that goes under your quick release plate too. It's permanently fixed to the tripod or tripod head, so I don't have to keep putting it on and off, so it's simple enough to use. I've seen others where the support comes out the back and supports the camera as well, and I'm not sure about that, because it means you can't swap to vertical mode when that's in place, which for video doesn't matter, but it would do when you're taking stills pictures. But also I wouldn't be able to keep taking the camera body off to put my 1.4 extender on and off, which I do a lot. As I'm photographing, extender comes on and off as my subject comes closer and further away from me. Anyway, this has made a big difference. As soon as you put it on, you can see the vibration is reduced. So I'm sitting far enough back in the hide, the Kestrel's not going to be aware of me, and it's not going to come particularly close anyway. But this big aperture gives me lots of viewing. I could put scrimming across there, but even the scrimming, it reduces your view a little bit, and I want a clear view. I know I'm going to have to be very quick when this bird comes close enough to me, and it's going to be difficult enough to pick up on it in the sky in the first place. The way you pick up on the bird is you're looking along the top of the lens, you're lining up roughly, and I always find I have to be square behind the camera. If I'm shooting at this sort of angle, leaning across, I can't do it. But if I can get square behind the camera, then I can usually pick it up pretty quickly. You could zoom back, and that makes it easier, and then once you've got it, zoom in again, but usually I don't have to bother. I'm able to pick up on it pretty quick. Just hope the light improves now. You can see there is a bit of blue in the left hand corner of the sky, and eventually that did reach me and the weather conditions improved. But there was not a moment when I couldn't see a kestrel hovering. Of the 4 birds, there was always one in the sky. Sometimes a bit distant, this is really too small, but there was always something to watch. And this was very interesting too. They were mobbing each other. It was a family party, and it was probably the young birds that were mobbing each other, practicing their flying skills. I'm always happier shooting against a blue sky. I prefer that colour to a white sky. Makes the exposure simpler as well. It's a straightforward exposure, whereas when we have a white sky like this, you can see the kestrel is a bit underexposed. I need to overexpose the picture. So as we're watching, I'm turning the exposure compensation dial and brightening the picture up, but I still don't like having a white sky. And I've probably gone too far now, slightly overexposed, so just come back a touch, and that's about the right exposure. But it's better when the sun is actually shining and lighting the bird up. Now we've got a bit of light on it as well. And it's come much closer to me. This is a female. You can see the barring on the tail. You can see the barring whether you're looking at the top or underneath the bird. And coming very close. And then slow motion again, 120 frames per second. Everything's taken with the Sony A1 and the 200 to 600 zoom lens, usually with a 1.4 extender on. But I certainly got enough footage that I needed for the film that I intend to make eventually. Green woodpecker, that's my next target. There's a hare coming into the picture just now. Well, that was brief, but I just got a little bit of footage of her hair. Didn't stay long. Now, I was mostly taking video, but just to finish off with a couple of stills pictures I took, and these are at my usual shutter speed of 2,500th of a second with the lens wide open. Thanks for watching.